From around the world and from CBS News headquarters in New York, this is the CBS Evening News with Bob Schieffer.
Good evening. Poland's military rulers said today that the country is getting back to normal, and one official said thousands of people arrested under martial law would be released shortly. Warsaw Radio said a strike by more than 1,000 miners in Katowice province is the only pocket of resistance left. But in underground newsletters, Solidarity is urging an all-out campaign of passive resistance. One letter says that every action of protest, even the most insignificant, strikes a blow against the country's military government. Liz Trotter, her Listening Post in London, has our report.
Warsaw Television tonight portrayed a normal, almost happy Poland, with Poles on their way to make family visits in the deep snowfall and ice skaters enjoying themselves in Warsaw. Getting married at Christmas time is a Polish tradition, so there were pictures of couples doing just that, but in civil ceremonies only. The Warsaw broadcast also showed pictures of Polish truck convoys on their way to pick up food from East Germany and other Soviet bloc countries. Polish troops were said to be guarding various points along the railroads, and in one segment they were being serenaded by singers from Warsaw. The state-controlled network also paraded a variety of writers, workers, and entertainers. This appeared to be an effort to show a broad spectrum of support for the military regime. While the official media continued to grind out its reports of a Poland back to normal, a different version reached the West through other sources. A Solidarity bulletin said to have been circulated in Warsaw turned up in several European capitals today. The bulletin said that Church and Communist Party officials were negotiating for a political settlement and urged the people to expand their protests so the position of the Church would be strengthened. The Solidarity bulletin, which could not be independently confirmed, made the following charges. In Wrocław, 300 detainees were kept all night in a freezing prison courtyard where they were hosed with water every hour. In Radom, 2,000 detainees were kept for a week in tents at a military airport. In Jastrzębie, near the Czechoslovakian border, many were injured when a strike was crushed last week. And near Warsaw, at the Ursus tractor factory, only one tractor was turned out in the first week of martial law. Tonight, Warsaw Radio reported 76 more miners had come up from the Piast mine in Silesia. The report described the situation as difficult and said there were still 1,121 men continuing their strike, which began almost 2 weeks ago. The family atmosphere of Christmas in Silesia, said the state radio, is still clouded by the tragedy of the miners at Piast. Liz Trotta, CBS News, London.
Reports reaching here from Warsaw today quote church sources as saying that Solidarity leader Lech Wałęsa, who's being detained in Warsaw, was visited earlier this week by the Deputy Prime Minister for Trade Union Affairs, Wałęsa's former negotiating partner. The sources say the minister stormed out of the room looking angry only moments after he entered. A Polish dissident who now teaches at Harvard, Stanisław Baranczuk, claimed today that smuggled reports reaching him from Poland say thousands or rather hundreds of people who've been arrested are being held in horrible conditions. He said he also has eyewitness reports that 2 leading labor activists have been beaten and tortured. In a long dissertation published in Pravda, the Soviet Union charges that the events in Poland over the last 17 months are part of a long campaign by the United States to wrest Poland from the communist orbit. There was official U.S. reaction to that at the State Department today. We have a report from Rita Flynn.
The State Department's response to the Pravda article was terse. A spokesman said charges similar to these have been made in the past. There was no truth to them then, and there is no truth to them now. The lengthy commentary was described as propaganda, not, it was pointed out, a government statement. Nevertheless, the article was the subject of close analysis at the State Department. The Soviets, one official here said, appear to be walking a tightrope of their own. Dmitry Symes, a longtime student of the Soviet Union, says Moscow's leadership may have reservations about the generals in charge of Poland.
They are sending a message that in a time of crisis, the Communist Party is not only impotent, but also unnecessary, that they can maintain law and order and run the trains on time without the communist apparatus. I don't think that people in the Politburo like it at all. I'm sure that they have to accept General Jaruzelski and his generals as a lesser evil, probably as the only chance to restore law and order in Poland obviously on Moscow's behalf.
Officials here say the Pravda article serves a number of Soviet purposes. It represents an effort to drive a wedge between the U.S. and its European allies. It reflects continued alarm about the turmoil in Poland, thereby keeping the pressure on the Jaruzelski government. And finally, it provides yet another excuse should the Soviets decide there is a need to intervene with force in Poland. Rita Flynn, CBS News, the State Department.
Pope John Paul made an unscheduled appearance today at his balcony window overlooking St. Peter's Square, and for the third day in a row, his remarks were directed at his homeland. The Pope did not mention Poland by name, but his meaning was clear when he said his Christian thoughts go out to those who are humiliated and offended inside their own countries.
For years, professionals have used Bengay not only after exercise, but to warm up before. Does warming up with Bengay really help? A recent clinical study proved when healthy adults warmed up with Bengay, they ran more comfortably for a longer time. For years, there's been proof Bengay helps relieve soreness for hours after exercise. Now there's proof Bengay can help you warm up before. Bengay after and Bengay before. Feel better with Bengay.
Why can you always count on Paul Masson California champagne to taste so good? It tastes so good because it's made with a great deal of care. It's fermented in the bottle to enhance the taste. And it's vintage dated. Most California champagnes aren't. Paul Masson California champagne. You can count on it to taste good time after time after time. Paul Masson said it nearly a century ago. We will sell no wine before it's time.
For the most part, U.S. efforts to drum up support for economic sanctions against Poland have been greeted by official silence. Today, one ally, Japan, said it is sending a special envoy to Europe on a fact-finding visit before making any decision. Gordon Josoloff has more on that from Tokyo.
Japan is reacting cautiously to imposition of martial law in Poland. For the moment, it is going ahead with food and other economic assistance already agreed upon. This includes shipment of 20,000 tons of rice, some of which was loaded aboard a Polish freighter this week. The government of Prime Minister Zenko Suzuki says it wants to coordinate its response with Western allies. Foreign ministry sources say the cabinet has decided until this consultation is completed, Japan will not join the United States in imposing any economic or political sanctions against the Polish government. Many Japanese feel that halting aid to Poland now will only worsen the situation.
I think, to my opinion, it's a little bit hasty action. The problem of Poland is it's not solved by outside pressure or outside sanctions.
The defection this week of Poland's ambassador to Japan further intensified already strong public sympathy here for the plight of ordinary Poles. That's why Japan is reluctant to call a halt to any help it can give Poland now, even if it means dealing with this regime. Gordon Josoloff, CBS News, Tokyo.
Reaction in Europe to Mr. Reagan's economic sanctions has also been slow in coming. For one thing, the announcement came at a time when many were preoccupied with the holidays. Martha Teichner has that story.
On the day after Christmas, the streets of London and other European capitals were deserted. The stores were closed. There have been no newspapers published in London since Thursday. So public reaction to President Reagan's announcement of sanctions against Poland has been muted. Official reaction has been at best cool. Lawrence Eagleburger, a senior State Department official, received what has been called a polite but guarded reception when he called on British, French, and Italian foreign ministers this week, trying to persuade them to apply similar sanctions. Those countries and several others, notably Sweden and Denmark, still consider the crackdown an internal Polish problem, not a clear Soviet intervention. As London papers go to press with news of West Germany's flat refusal to impose American-inspired sanctions, the other European allies seem almost as unwilling to cooperate with a U.S. action they consider simplistic.
We all have, in different degrees, a real fear that we will hit the sufferers as well as the guilty, which we don't want to do. And secondly, some nations, above all West Germany, are very, very committed commercially and economically. Just, as I may say, as the Iowa farmers would be committed if Reagan were to reimpose the grain embargo.
Of significant interest here, any progress made by Archbishop Luigi Poggi, the papal envoy who returned today from Poland. Western European countries are convinced that only the Catholic Church can effectively negotiate a settlement of the Polish crisis, that sanctions won't work. If there is a positive note in the British and Western European reaction to Reagan's announcement, it is the general feeling of relief here that Reagan did not suspend the nuclear disarmament talks with the Soviet Union taking place in Geneva. That action, according to the Europeans, must be reserved to be used only if Russian tanks actually cross the Polish border. Martha Teichner, CBS News, London.
Nowhere in this country has public reaction to events in Poland been angrier than in Chicago, with its large Polish population. On the lakefront, 4 Polish men are protesting this military takeover by camping out on a hunger strike. They started Christmas Eve and plan to fast until tomorrow. They pitched their tent across from the Polish consulate. Tomorrow, Polish Americans there are holding a funeral procession for those killed in Poland.
You've seen these hands probably hundreds of times, and you don't even know whose they are.
They're mine. I'm a professional hand model, so my hands better look good. And that's why I use Rose Milk skincare lotion. Rose Milk is made with tiny moisturizers, less than 1/4 the size of ordinary lotions, so it smooths and softens your skin thoroughly, and Rose Milk isn't greasy. Take it from someone who depends on soft, smooth hands for a living. There's nothing like Rose Milk.
Big parties, little parties, those very special parties, they always sparkle with Canada Dry. That very special Canada Dry sparkle. Always light, always crisp, and very, very refreshing. Canada Dry Club Soda, tonic water, and ginger ale. They make your parties sparkle. You sparkle. Make your holidays sparkle with Canada Dry.
Not much has been said about it in this country, what with all the grim news from Poland, but this weekend is the anniversary of another somber development. It was 2 years ago that the Soviets invaded Afghanistan and set up a puppet government there. Today in New Delhi, 300 Afghan men, women, and children began a 24-hour sit-in and a hunger strike at the Soviet embassy to protest the Russian occupation. In Miami, Florida, another kind of hunger strike is now in its 3rd day. About 600 Haitian refugees who are protesting their detention say that they will refuse to eat until U.S. authorities release them. We have more on that story from Charles Gomez.
A holiday mass, but instead of joy, there is sadness. And this Christmas season, fasting as well. The 660 Haitian men inside a federal detention camp have vowed not to eat until they are released to the custody of family and friends. Immigration officials refuse, saying the refugees must await deportation hearings at the camp. These Haitians prefer to call it a prison. Reporters have been barred from the facility for 2 days. But one Haitian who asked not to be identified visited friends here today.
Actually, it is deteriorating in there. A lot of people are in bed at the hospital, at the clinic, okay? They are suffering because they have been going without food for 3 days, okay, which is tough.
The Haitians were visited yesterday by representatives of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. Its local executive director charges immigration officials with discrimination.
That this country has violated the laws of God and has violated their own rules and regulations, and it's simply because they're black.
Past administrations have released refugees to the custody of family and friends until immigration hearings could be held. But that has not been the case with the Reagan administration, which has sought to deter Haitians from coming to this country. This hunger strike, these refugees say, is to convince the Reagan administration that the policy must be changed. Charles Gomez, CBS News, West Dade County, Florida.
We also have a story tonight about another group of immigrants who came to this country many years ago from one small area in China. For much of that time, they were cut off from their relatives, but that has changed as the United States and China have resumed diplomatic relations. Now, some of the Chinese are even returning home to live out their retirement. We have a report from Bruce Dunning.
This is Taishan County, population 900,000. Another 300,000 people in the United States and Canada call it their ancestral home. The county high school was built 70 years ago with funds sent from North America by successful sons of Taishan. All that support stopped when the communist government came to power. Now contacts are resuming. There are all kinds of construction projects financed largely with overseas Chinese money. Apartments are being built for sale to overseas Chinese who are being invited to settle here. Most of the millions of overseas Chinese around the world have their roots in Guangdong province, Toshan County most of all. The Chinese have a saying, the falling leaves return to the roots. And since U.S. diplomatic recognition of China, about 36 aging Chinese Americans have returned here. Mrs. Ching Toy-yun, 86 years old, left her daughter and son-in-law in San Francisco. She returned to the village where she has 44 grandchildren and great-grandchildren, and where her Social Security check greatly increases the family income. Most rural Chinese families live on a few $100s a year, so a monthly Social Security check represents real wealth. It would be an ideal retirement for Xu Wing-Louis, except that his Social Security checks are not reaching him here in China. For 60 years, from Texas to Manhattan, he labored in the laundries and restaurants of America's Chinatowns. He never learned much English, but he did become an American citizen. Earlier this year, Louis came home to spend his last years with a wife he hadn't seen for decades. All he misses from New York, he says, are his son's family and the sight of Manhattan's bridges. Though more Chinese American retirees are expected to return, it's not just a one-way street. Each of the 95 families in Chazhou Hamlet has relatives in America, some of them willing to sponsor people from here as immigrants. The Chinese government is again allowing some people to go to the Gold Mountain. Since normalization, some 40 people have emigrated from this village to the United States, and others are waiting to go as soon as the U.S. government gives permission. Bruce Dunning, CBS News, Toshan County, Guangdong Province, China.
By the way, after Bruce Dunning filed that report, one of our researchers checked with the Social Security office in Washington. We're now informed that the bureaucratic snarl has been untangled and Xu Wing-Louis' first Social Security check has been received.
In Colombia, South America, it is a tradition to celebrate the Day of the Farmer. To celebrate for men like Juan Valdez, who for centuries have gone to the fields to pick by hand only the coffee beans that are ready, because it is their dedication to the heritage of Colombian coffee that makes it the richest coffee in the world. And that is worth celebrating.
Ring in the holidays. Ring out the year. Sparkling with Andre. Love and good cheer. Take Andre home for the holidays. Andre for the holidays.
What's a celebration without Andre champagne to lend sparkle and elegance to your good times? Greet the season and your friends with the best. Andre.
For the holidays and all year long.
Every community in the country has felt the pressure of the administration's budget cuts in one way or another, and the president's new neighborhood, Washington, D.C., is no exception. Lee Thornton has been looking into one aspect of that, and tonight she has a report on how the schools in the nation's capital are coping.
Apple. We had apples for lunch.
Lonnie Hart is a third grader, but he's reading below that level. He's trying to catch up with the help of a teacher who isn't a teacher at all. He is 20-year-old Samuel Phipps, a university sophomore majoring in finance and a volunteer tutor. All day, every school day in Washington, volunteers are working intensively with students who are in danger of failing. More than 700 came out this fall for orientation sessions, signing up to lend their time and talent. People like a retired systems analyst for the CIA.
You can only touch a few children. I have only 3. Somebody else has another 3. But there are a lot of children that are floundering, I think.
Last year, some 10,000 children, about half of the city's first, second, and third graders, failed to meet new reading and math standards and were not promoted. This at a time when there was no money for extra teachers. School and city officials mounted Operation Rescue, calling for 1,000 volunteer tutors.
We recruited 900. And out of that 900, I think it's amazing that 673 stayed in the program the entire semester. And I'm sure if you match that against any other kind of record of volunteers across the country. That would be unusual.
The volunteers came from all walks of life and from as far as 50 miles away. And when their work and the teachers was finished, all but 3,800 of the 10,000 failing elementary school students had improved enough to be promoted. School and city officials say Operation Rescue is an example of volunteerism at its best. Still, they say that this program, with its $75,000 budget contributed by the United Way, cannot compensate for serious underfunding.
I don't believe a major share of the operation of a school system, in particularly its instructional program, should be left to volunteers. I do believe that they can play a significant role in improving the quality of education. But I believe that we still have to pay for employees to do the major part of operating a school system.
The school budget, in the words of one spokesman, hasn't kept fiscal pace with anything. Because of Reagan administration cuts, school officials expect to receive $14 million less in federal funds this year than last. The Urban League is administering Operation Rescue this year, but its president says that measured against that kind of dollar loss, personal volunteerism will never be enough.
To expect volunteerism to fill the holes drilled by this administration and the safety net and the lives of people is a mistake and a misperception of what volunteerism is. That gap will not be filled because the resources are not there, and I do not think it is the role of the private sector to in fact do that.
As the debate on public spending goes on, the volunteers in the public schools of the nation's capital are trying to help one child at a time. Lee Thornton, CBS News, Washington.
Canadian firemen have finally brought under control a two-day fire on a loaded oil tanker in the St. Lawrence River northeast of Quebec City. Police found the bodies of 2 more crewmen, raising the toll to 3 known dead, with 4 missing and feared dead.
Come on, Harry! Lawless strike! We can't lose this one!
Hey, losing your dentures, Bobby?
There's nothing funny about loose spots. I found out. I also found Fixodent.
Fixodent helps fix loose spots. Fixodent spreads evenly, filling tiny gaps between dentures and gum with ingredients that give added dimension to holding.
Here's Charlie. He's no problem now, and neither are my loose spots.
Hey, guys, have a ball.
Today's Fixodent helps fix loose spots.
What do hospitals use for relief of constipation? 9 out of 10 hospitals use gentle, dependable milk of magnesia. That's what comes in this bottle of Phillips. Most doctors agree milk of magnesia is gentler than the ingredient in both these laxatives, and unlike bulk laxatives that can take days to work, Phillips works dependably, usually overnight. Remember, 9 out of 10 hospitals use milk of magnesia. So get Phillips, regular mint or convenient mint tablets.
There's a line from an old Broadway show about how kids, if you leave them alone, will pick up a lot on their own, while some things, such as hatred, must be carefully taught. Well, in Chicago this week, Marty Cinder ran across a story that sort of illustrates that. Here's his report.
Tran Luong, his wife Kimen, and their 3 children are from Vietnam. Alberto Mehic and his cousin Letitia are Mexican. Rose and Sam Weisberg are from Kiev in Russia. What they have in common is that they all live in this 24-story apartment building in Chicago's multi-ethnic neighborhood called Uptown. This is a place of refuge for refugees from around the world, families who share not only an address, but a common heritage of struggle that continues today. The recession has hit hard here, and there are squabbles and tensions and sometimes violence between neighbors. But on the building's first floor, the mood is different. 5 days a week, 80 children, preschoolers through age 10, participate in activities at a daycare center sponsored by a private social service agency. Here, the children of immigrants from around the world are finding that differences of color or nationality don't seem to make much of a difference.
It's amazing. I think they all get along quite well. They really don't see color or any kind of differences between each other.
You have to share with your friends. Like you got no crayon, then you ask your friend to borrow crayon, he might let you borrow crayon. That's how you make friends? Yeah. Like if somebody get hurt, you gotta help them. You gotta take care of them, make them feel better. And I get along with my friend. She's Spanish too. I get along with Diana. She's black, and I still be a friend.
It's really good to see that, you know, and I wish, that's my Christmas. I'm gonna ask Santa for this. I wish the grown-ups could do that too, you know. It would be so good to see, you know, just the different people getting together under all sorts of circumstances.
At the center's recent Christmas party, each child's family brought native food to share. There were native costumes and even some folk dancing. A chance for the parents to get to know each other better and absorb the lessons their children have been learning. Marty Sender, CBS News, Chicago.
That's the news. I'm Bob Schieffer, CBS News, New York. Good night. Happy holidays.
Whirlpool is about to show you something in appliance quality you may never have seen before. A refrigerator that monitors itself to help protect your food. A microwave oven that uses a built-in computer to simplify your cooking. A dishwasher you can program to start hours later. And a laundry pair with electronic controls for today's fabrics. Whirlpool has created its first family of appliances with solid state to give you the quality of tomorrow's technology today.
This is Aldo Cella. He's not preoccupied with formality.
Cella Lambrusco.
He's not the height of grace. But he knows what people like. Cella wines, with a taste so sparkling, so refreshing. They're perfect with everything, every time, to everyone.
Cella Bianco. Mwah! Chill a Cella.
From around the world and from CBS News headquarters in New York, this has been the CBS Evening News with Bob Schieffer. Tomorrow's guest on Face the Nation will be Walter Stessel, Undersecretary.
His release, and so the unanswered question is whether his kidnappers ever intend to set him free. Gary Shepard.